Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and today we are going to learn about central nervous system. Here we will be discussing about brain and spinal cord. So in biological basis of behavior part 7 we are going to discuss about the major topic that is central nervous system. Let us discuss now. Nervous system. It is a highly complex part of animal and human that coordinates action and sensory information. How? By transmitting signals to and from different parts of the body. So whenever a body is induced to any kind of stimulus, it usually provides the response. So how it is acting on this stimulus through the sensory part and how this message goes from sensory neuron to the brain, and again brain send message to the different parts of the body for the response. So nervous system, it is usually divided into two parts, that is central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. But in this video, we will be only discussing about the central nervous system. So let us start regarding this topic. So central nervous system, it consists of brain and spinal cord. And peripheral nervous system, it has two subdivisions, that is autonomous nervous system and somatic nervous system. In further video, we will be also discussing about peripheral nervous system. So, when we are talking about the central nervous system, we need to understand that these two are the major part of the central nervous system, and that is brain and spinal cord. So, when you are looking at this figure, please look at little seriously because this whole body, if you see, it consists of the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. So in this video we are discussing about the central nervous system. So what are the major parts of the central nervous system? That is brain and spinal cord. Now in peripheral nervous system, if you see this figure, you can see the autonomous nervous system and the somatic nervous system. So today in this video we'll be majorly discussing about the brain and spinal cord. So looking at the central nervous system, if you see this structure, this whole structure is known as cerebrum, and here we will be discussing about the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So let's discuss about the brain. Brain and spinal cord are two important parts of central nervous system. The brain consists of three parts, and that is hindbrain, midbrain and forebrain. So talking about the hindbrain, the spinal cord passes the information through hindbrain. How is information passed? Information is passed from the spinal cord to the hindbrain. So it is the lowest part of the brain and it helps in regulating the routine, that is housekeeping function for daily activities. And it has three major structure, that is medulla oblongata, pons and cerebellum. So here in the structure you can see pons, medulla and cerebellum. Talking about the medulla oblongata, it operates auto function of the body like breathing, blood circulation, heartbeat, etc. We can do these activities without thinking about them. And pons, it is the passage that connects two halves of the brain and hindbrain. So what does it mean? Two halves of the brain, that is forebrain and midbrain. and hindbrain. So, information passes from this center to the higher center and down to the effectors. It means from pons, message is passed to the higher center, and again from the pons, it is passed to the down to the effectors. It consists of highly interconnected mass of neurons, and pons also controls sleep and arousal. Now, talking about the next part of our brain, that is cerebellum. It is located behind the medulla and pons. It controls movement activities, and damage to the cerebellum creates poor function of muscles in walking. Like alcohol is sensitive to cerebellum, and whenever a person drinks alcohol, what happens is they feel their movement. So often we see that the person who is drinking lots of alcohol, they have problem while walking because cerebellum controls movement activities, but alcohol is sensitive to the cerebellum. So talking about the next part of brain, that is midbrain, as you can see the structure. So here what we understand is this is the midbrain, and after the hindbrain, where information is passed, it is passed to the midbrain. And it is very small area that serves as the center of several postural reflexes activated with the senses. Like the movement of eyes to be fixed at the object, it is also called the ascending reticular activating system. It is also called as the ascending reticular activating system. So what is the major function of this midbrain, which is very small area? So fibers and nerve cells are connected with the cortical arousal and activate other parts of the brain. How it is activating the other parts of the brain? Because the fibers and nerve cells are connected with the cortical arousal. Also, it produces general body arousals and alertness in the body. Forebrain. So we talked about hindbrain, midbrain. Now from hindbrain to midbrain, information has passed. Now information comes from midbrain to the forebrain. So it is located from forehead to the middle of the skull. There are two major areas. One is thalamus, hypothalamus, limbic system, and other is cerebral cortex. Here we need to understand that the cerebral cortex is also known as the new brain. Talking about the thalamus, it lies between two cerebral hemisphere and hidden in the forebrain. So it is also called a sensory switchboard. As you can see in figure also, it lies between the two cerebral hemisphere. So what is the function of thalamus? It is the relay system that receives input from all incoming fibers like seeing, hearing. It helps to mediate and link upper and lower center by sending incoming stimuli from sense organs to the part of brains. Hypothalamus. It is below the thalamus. As you can see in figure also, it is below the thalamus and very small in size, but very important in regulating internal body functions like temperature, metabolism, sleeping, drinking, sexual motivation. So, what is limbic system? So, limbic system is the group of structure. The largest is the hippocampus and plays a vital role in emotional activity and storage of the memories. And another part is amygdala, which is linked with the hypothalamus and works in fear, rage, etc. Now, talking about the major part, that is cerebrum. Cerebrum is the largest part of brain, making up to two-thirds of its total mass. It sits at the top and front and responsible for higher functions like intelligence, language, memory, and voluntary movement. So, cerebral cortex is the major part of the cerebrum. It is the outer wrinkled layer of the cerebrum. as you can see in the figure also. So this is the cerebral cortex. So it is wrinkled, it is outer of the cerebrum. So it is often called the gray matter. The folds you see over here, this is gyri, this is sulci. So this is gyri and this is sulci. So if you see some fine structures over here, you call it sulci. And if you see this structure, this is gyri. So the folds gyri and group sulci significantly increases its surface because it allows more neurons to fit. This is where most information processing occurs. Talking about the cerebral cortex, it is also called as the new brain because it has billions of nerves. Brownish gray in color that has two symmetrical halves known as cerebral hemisphere. The right hemisphere regulates left hemisphere functional parts and vice versa. It contains 80% of the brain and its major function is responsible for reasoning, thinking, planning, remembering, etc. Talking about the hemisphere, the cerebrum is divided into left hemisphere, and left hemisphere is generally dominant for the language, logic, arithmetic, and right hemisphere it is dominant for spatial abilities like creativity, face recognition. They communicate the corpus callosum, a thick bundle of nerve fibers. So it has also lobes, so the each hemisphere is further divided into four major lobes named after the skull bones that cover them. So, if you talk about the lobe, there are four major lobes: frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. So, you can see here in the structure, this is frontal lobe, this is parietal lobe, this is occipital, and this is temporal lobe. So, what are the major function of the frontal lobe? This so as you can see, it is the executive functions like planning, decision making, judgment, personality, emotion, and voluntary movement like motor cortex. So it contains Broca's area, which also helps in the speech production. So frontal lobe, primary function is like executive function and voluntary movement. Now, the function of this parietal lobe is it processes sensory information like touch, pain, temperature by the somatosensory cortex, spatial awareness, and navigation. And the function of temporal lobe is it processes auditory information like hearing, memory formation, which happens in hippocampus, and language comprehension. So, the last one, occipital lobe, it is primarily responsible for visual processing and interpreting sight, visual cortex. So we discussed about the brain. Now we are going to discuss about the another part of central nervous system, and that is also very important because firstly the message goes to our sensory neurons, and when our sense organs is in touch with any kind of stimulus, then the message goes to the spinal cord and to the brain. So, spinal cord, as you can see in the figure, it's a rope-like segment about the thickness of a pencil that connects nerve tissue extending down the back. It is long, thin, tubular structure made of nervous tissue which extends from medulla oblongata in the brainstem to the lumbar region of the vertebral column. So it includes its central canal of the spinal cord, which contains cerebrospinal fluid. So talking about the length, it's 43 centimeter in female and 45 centimeter in man. So it works as the information highway because from the sense organ, the message passes to spinal cord and to the brain, and from brain to spinal cord and to the sense organs of the body, whether to respond or not. The spinal cord consists of following nerves, and they are Eight cervical nerves, as you can see in figure also, you can see from C1 to C8, and 12 thoracic nerves, T1 to T12, and 5 lumbar nerves, L1 to L5, and sacral nerves from S1 to S5, and coccygeal nerves, which is 1. So the major function of the spinal cord is it connects higher brain centers to and from and regulates reflexes. Example, hiccoughing, yawning, knee jerk, etc. It also exchanges several messages between the brain and the body, and reflex action is an important function carried by a spinal cord. Thank you. So if you want to know more about central nervous system, please visit to following websites. You will get more information from here. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe my channel. Thank you so much.